Hello everybody, I am Jarrett Ross, the GeneaVlogger, and welcome back to another Professional Genealogist Reacts. On today's video, I will be reacting to Shocked by My DNA Test Results by NFKRZ. I have not seen this channel before. He is kind of a larger channel. He has 855,000 subscribers, and I was actually suggested this video by a user, so don't know what to expect. I did do a little bit of Google searching about him before the video just because it was like, I always never know with some of these YouTube channels I've never seen. And I did see he's a Russian YouTuber who comments, I guess, about Russian politics and things that have to do with Russia. So, I'm guessing he's going to be getting a mixture of Eastern European, possibly some Asian, some Balkan, Caucasus. Definitely wouldn't be surprised if he had any sort of Jewish ancestry readings in there. Very possibly may have some other European mixed in there as well too. But before we do jump into the video, please be sure to give this a thumbs up. It really does help me out. Also, be sure to subscribe and click that bell for notifications on future videos. But now we've said all of that fun stuff, let's go ahead and watch the video.
Hello Blazers, no fuck is there, how you guys doing today? Welcome to a brand new video, and today guys, it is finally time. My DNA results are back, and it is gaming time. It is the official gaming hour right now. So I got a DNA test back in January, so this video was 3 months in the making. I filmed myself taking this test back in January, and actually I sent it back immediately, and they were transferring to a new DNA chip or something like that, so it literally took 3 months for me to wait for the results. So yeah, let's go back to the future. Let's go back in time to January and see me taking this epic test. See you in the past, gamers. So here's my DNA kit. It just arrived.
Okay, did MyHeritage.
Only opened the package, haven't opened this yet. This is from MyHeritage DNA.
Now, I will say, when it comes to different DNA testing companies, I get this question all the time, which one's the best DNA test to test with? And when it comes to the admixtures, honestly, I hate answering that question because they're all kind of about the same in my opinion. I mean, sure, some of them may be better suited in terms of different ancestries you have. Like recently I had someone who's Asian actually comment that, the big four in terms of in America, Ancestry, MyHeritage, 23andMe, Family Tree DNA, are not very good for people with Asian results, and that there are Asian-based DNA companies that have much better results for the admixtures because they have more population reference groups and they have more to work with, which does make sense. But one thing with MyHeritage is that they are a company that has multiple distribution centers throughout the world. And because of that, they actually have had a wider range of people in terms of their DNA matching. So not just for your admixture, because personally, the admixture's fun, but it's not really genealogically important. And it also doesn't really tell you your true ancestry. It just tells you the genes that you've inherited, where they likely came from. But you're still missing a whole bunches of your ancestry because you didn't inherit all of the DNA of all of your ancestors. But when it comes to DNA matching and the databases, it all depends on who has taken the tests. And MyHeritage has one of the largest population databases for Eastern Europe. At least in my own experience, especially coming from a family who is Jewish, there are a lot of people in Eastern Europe who are Jewish who are related to all of the, the wider Ashkenazi diaspora that came out of Eastern Europe. And when I go on MyHeritage, I see a lot of people who are matches who are from different parts of Eastern Europe, especially in like Ukraine and Russia, probably especially Ukraine more than anything. But I think that's an important thing just to say, is that when it comes to some of these different companies, it can be important, depending on your ancestry, to look into which companies have a better representation from those areas. So if you're Eastern European, or if you're Jewish and you're looking for relatives who may still live in East Europe, or you're looking for relatives who may live in East Europe for any other reason, taking a MyHeritage DNA test may be the best option because they have such a good database of people from Eastern Europe. So hopefully that little aside isn't too long, but let's jump back into the video.
To get one from 23andMe, which is the one that everybody gets, but the delivery to Russia was like $100 on that, and I was like, no thanks. Opens up like this.
And the reason why he was able to get this without paying the $100 for MyHeritage is because MyHeritage has that distribution center, which is nearby. Whereas 23andMe, Family Tree DNA is based out of Houston. I don't know if 23andMe is. I don't know exactly where they're based out of, but I'm sure it's out of the U.S.
That's pretty cool. For best results, please do not eat, drink, chew gum, or smoke for 30 minutes before collecting your new DNA sample. But this is what it looks like. Apparently, I thought this would be the same as 23andMe when you have to spit.
Yeah, no, you don't have to do spit takes with MyHeritage. It's a swab take.
You're apparently supposed to put it inside on the side of your cheek. I'll do it. You'll see. I'm gonna just open this one before so that I don't fuck everything up. So I'm supposed to put it in my mouth and rotate it for 30 to 60 seconds. Hey guys, the fuck is that? Welcome to a brand new video. This is epic right now. Alcohol. Okay, I think that should be enough. So what I'm supposed to do now is put it in like this.
Yeah, snap it.
Break it up. Now I close it, and it's done. Now I gotta do the second cheek as well. See, it's just dangling inside there. It's kind of disgusting, to be honest with you guys. But this is fun to do. This is fun. I'm really struggling.
Yeah, it is. It is disgusting, but it's nowhere as close to disgusting as the spit takes for like Ancestry or 23andMe.
I'm struggling to get some meat out of my teeth with a toothpick right now. That's what I look like. Now I'm finally ready to check out my DNA results, okay? Now before I look at them, I guess I'll just give a couple of predictions or something like that. To be completely honest with you guys, I don't expect my genealogy, my ancestry to be anything special. Like I'm just a Russian white dude. There's probably a bit of Ukrainian and
just a Russian white. I have gotten a lot of comments from people on a lot of the videos I've watched, especially some of my early videos. I think it was that one BuzzFeed video where a lot of the people that were white were like, oh, I'm just a basic white guy. And a lot of people have commented like, yeah, I mean, technically basic white guy, but there's a lot. I mean, it's a lot more interesting than that. Like, just because you're white doesn't mean you don't have history. There's a lot of variation in terms of the history of people who are white, have light skin, I have a very different ancestry than a lot of the other white people who come from Sweden or come from the UK or, else. So, yeah. Just something. A basic white Russian kid. No, I don't know.
Russian because they're technically kind of the same nation anyway. Ukrainians out there, don't get triggered because I love y'all. The situation for me is a bit different from a person from America that is taking a DNA test, right? Because technically everyone in America is an immigrant, apart from the Native Americans, right? So it's very interesting to see where people came from originally, like what parts of Europe, what part of Africa, and the Middle East, whatever it is, right? Originally Asia. But like Russia is a huge country, and all I know about my family is that I just have Russians on Russians, Ukrainians on Ukrainians, and there might be a few Asians in the mix as well. I have no idea what to expect. So
there was a lot of migration to and through different parts of Eastern Europe, especially when you look at, the Russian Empire and all of that, what, that covered. But there really was a lot of travel back in the, 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, a lot more than people realize. So you get a lot of this thinking where it's, well, I'm just going to be Russian on Russian on Russian on Russian. Might not be that way. It may, but I feel like a lot of people just kind of just assume like, oh, well, my ancestry is boring. But, I mean, most people, if I were to be able to ask him specifically, do you know your great-grandparents' stories? Like, he may know his grandparents, but do you know your great-grandparents' stories? Do you know about their parents? And, we're talking about, not that far back generationally. I mean, his parents' grandparents, his grandparents' grandparents. But what does he know about their stories? Because it just takes one of them to have come from somewhere else, and then he's going to have, some sort of reading of, 6% something else, I mean, for all he knows, he could have a second great grandparent who actually came from like Spain or something. And so he's going to end up with, 6% or 12% Iberian or something. So you just really never know. And with traveling back then, people traveled a lot more than you really expect.
I just expect myself to be the most vanilla Russian possible. I'm kind of out of breath right now. Even though it's probably going to be just vanilla Russian, I'm still kind of scared, to be honest with you. And I have not looked at the results at all yet. I waited for this moment to give the most epic reaction to you guys. So let's get into it. Baltic 48.7, East European 42.6 plus two others 8.7. Baltic? Bro, Latvia gang. Wait, what the fuck? I have never heard that my family has any roots in like Latvia, Lithuania, or Estonia or something like that. Holy shit. So
Makes
let's look at
sense
the whole thing. I'm
to me.
Baltic 48.7%, and it gives no particular... Okay, so I guess this would not be as detailed as 23andMe, for example, but I've already said that 23andMe is too expensive and I couldn't get it, but this is...
It's not that it's not as detailed, it's that they define the population groups differently. So each company has different population reference studies that they'll use. Each company will then also do the algorithms somewhat differently. So, and even more on top of that, each company will be testing different SNPs. So that's the single nucleotide polymorphisms. That's basically just a mutation that we can use to figure out how people are related and if they share DNA. And so different companies test different SNPs, and because of that, readings may come out differently because they're looking at some different SNPs. I will say one thing a lot of people say about MyHeritage is that they don't like the way that they do their admixtures. They don't believe the results. But in all honesty, I've dealt with people who have been unhappy with the results they've received from every single company. So it doesn't matter which company you say. I know someone who has said that they hated their results were wrong. My Ancestry results were wrong. My Heritage results were wrong. 23andMe was wrong. It kind of just becomes a pick your own ancestry. So that's one of the reasons why with these admixtures, it's always like, yeah, they're fun, but the true thing, the true figuring out your ancestry comes from the actual genealogy research.
Still pretty amazing, right? So I am 48.7% Baltic. I am, Jesus. This is like changing my entire life right now. I am more Lithuanian or Estonian or Latvian than I am Russian.
But remember too, that when you're looking at these results, they're looking at the genetics of things, but the people that are living in the Baltic states and the people that are living in Russia probably have a lot of genetic similarity just because they all share a lot of the same ancestors. Just because they're living in different places of the world now doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have similar ancestors. And so that could be a big part of it. He may not have necessarily had ancestry directly in the Baltic states, but he may have such close genetic ties to people in the Baltic states that it comes up as looking like he's from the Baltic states because that's what the population reference is defined as. So this is something very common that I find with a lot of DNA testing where people kind of expect it to be, well, we can define it exactly by the country lines. If somebody's living 1 mile from the border in Lithuania, we can do the DNA test and it'll show Lithuania, and someone 1 mile from the border in Latvia, they'll show Latvia. That's not the case. DNA doesn't care about borders. But people buying consumer genetic tests, they do. And so that's, these companies try to do it as best as they possibly can. But, it's not a perfect science when it comes to the admixture. It's just an educated guess is the best way to look at it.
It might look like I'm overreacting right now with something, but I'm not. Like, I literally thought I was just vanilla Russian. So I'm 42.6% Eastern European. But I assume Russia would count as that?
Basically they're just saying that this is so broad, we're not even going to try to define it by a country level or even a regional level. We're just going to say Eastern Europe. Somewhere Eastern Europe. The population groups of Eastern Europe are just so similar genetically, that it's not surprising he would get that.
Are you trying to tell me I'm not even Russian? Are you trying to tell me right now that I'm
No, that's
Ukrainian or some
Russian.
shit, bro?
That would
Look,
be Russian too.
I'm gonna look up what other Russians got on this test, and if they get Eastern European as well and not Russian, then okay, then I'm okay with myself. These guys look pretty. These guys have a Russian channel. They look pretty Russian to me, right? Okay, yeah. So theirs is just the same. It shows Eastern Europe, but it doesn't show Russia as a part of it. So I'm just going to assume that this entire Eastern European thing also includes Russia.
You are correct. That entire Eastern European thing, even though the little purple, pink circles, those circles, the reason why they're multicolored is because they're just trying to say these are where the strongest, the areas that are strongest correlated, and then the further you go out, it's just a little bit less. But I mean, there's a good amount of Russia that's covered. Russia's huge, so it's I guess a good amount. Technically it's only a small percentage, but it's still, it's a big area. I mean, if you look at the amount of area that's being covered, it's about the same size as Ukraine is, or at least visually. Maps may not always be right in terms of the sizing, but yeah. So when it's saying Eastern Europe, it's giving just that kind of generalized, like somewhere in Eastern Europe. And if you really think about it too, a lot of these places were once part of the Russian Empire. So it makes sense. It makes sense.
Okay, I just don't want my entire life to be a lie right now. So we got 3.4% Central Asia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. Bro, that's the drip. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because actually, guys, if you don't know where I live in a city called Chelyabinsk. So this is my city on the map right here, and this is Kazakhstan. So I guess it makes sense because they're so close. Like, I'm kind of on the border with Kazakhstan, so it makes sense that maybe because my family has been around this whole area, it makes sense that Kazakhstan would kind of enter the bloodline. So yeah, with this one, it makes sense. But fucking Baltic... Really?
He didn't mention the South. He didn't mention the South Europe yet.
I had a relative that came from like Lithuania or Estonia or something like that, or Latvia. Oh, and yeah, I forgot. I'm 5.3% Greek, dude. Oh my god, I gotta go to Greece.
So 5.3% Greek would be the equivalent of like a second great grandparent. Could be a great grandparent. Obviously, it could be a much more distant one, and he just ended up with more. But of course, when I say that it's equivalent of that, it doesn't necessarily mean that that 5.3% is coming from one great grandparent or one second great grandparent. He may have, on his mom's side, he may have a fourth great grandparent who is fully Greek. And on his dad's side, he may have a fifth great grandparent who is fully Greek. And then for whatever reason, he inherited a decent amount of that Greek from both sides. It came down, and now it's this 5.3% or whatever. So often you will hear me say, that's the equivalent of a great grandparent, or that's the equivalent of, but I'm not saying it is from a great grandparent. It's just that's if it's coming from one recent ancestor, that's where it would be coming from, but it doesn't always necessarily mean that it's coming from one recent ancestor.
5.3% Greek. That is actually a pretty big number. So Greece, y'all my boys, dude. We share something. Like the Baltic countries are close to Russia, right? So maybe it makes sense. But Greece, dude, like dead ass, I'm the descendant of those dudes, Cyril and Methodius, that created the Cyrillic alphabet. That's the Russian script, basically. The script that a lot of Slavic countries use, dude. I'm a descendant of them. This is why I'm continuing. I'm a linguist. I study languages. I'm continuing the path that my ancestors have paved. This is epic. So let's check all other support ethnicities. So I have pretty much 0 on everything else. So,
anything that you didn't get, it's just gonna show 0 when you click that. The reason why they have that, I think, is so that you can see what population groups they do reference. So if he actually, let's see if he scrolls up. So if you look, when he scrolls up in Europe, under East Europe, Baltic, East European, and Balkan, that's all there is. Just those 3. So there is no Russian definition in there. So Russia is going to be defined as part of those. More likely, it's part of that Eastern European. Now, actually, let's see. They don't define it as any sort of Asia, do they? I don't think so.
So I have pretty much 0 on everything else. So, the important one I have to address is Ashkenazi Jewish. Unfortunately, I am 0% Ashkenazi Jewish. It would be nice if I was, I could get that Israel citizenship. Cool though, my girlfriend's Jewish, so I'm Jewish by proxy.
Actually, he brings up something interesting. I don't know if Israel allows citizenship based on DNA. I know that's something a lot of people have kind of worried about in a sense for DNA stuff, especially like I talked about previously. I know some Native American tribes have purposely stayed away from any sort of DNA testing because they don't want people to start trying to claim tribal membership through DNA tests. It's also been an issue for Sephardi return of citizenship. So in Spain and Portugal, they had laws that allowed fast track citizenship for people who could prove they were Sephardi descendants. And I know there were some issues, especially among different Sephardi descendants. I don't know if Israel does it. I'll have to look into that. If anyone knows, comment down below, because I imagine I have a lot of people watching who are from Israel or who have lived in Israel.
Yeah, dude, these results, I've never expected shit like this. Dude, I feel a whole new connection to fucking Lithuania and Latvia and Estonia now. Like, I need to go. Like, I dead ass need to go. You can check, like, your cousins in this. Oh, this is epic, so I can see what percentage.
Someone finally showed DNA matches. Awesome. Now, I will say one thing that, is kind of not the best thing to do, and I know it's one reason why it's hard for me to put stuff up. When you're showing DNA matches like this, it's usually best not to show people's names and stuff. So, that's his risk. This is from 2019, so a while back. But yeah, you can, when you look through his results, note it. Like if you look, okay, we see a third to fifth cousin, so 44.9 centimorgans. Possible that he could figure out how they're related, but they live in Russia. But then we have this Andrew Stevens. He lives in Great Britain. Now, I will say, I am seeing that, this is showing his top matches. 44.9 is not very good for a top match, but this is from April of 2019, so maybe he's gotten more since then. But I did see, if we kind of scroll back...
Oh, this is epic, so I can see what percentage of my DNA... Epic, so I can see cousins in this?
There we go. So if you see, like... we just had it. So, but basically you see like a lot of names with Cyrillic, and that just shows that there are a lot of people in the database who are from Eastern Europe, from some country where for whatever reason they're still, they're using Cyrillic for their name.
Like I need to go. Like I dead ass need to go. You can check like your cousins in this. Oh, this is epic. So I can see what percentage of my DNA I share with somebody. So there's some girl called Nadia here. Shares 0.6 of our DNA. This is pretty epic. So the Russian people that took the test, 79% of them are Eastern European, which includes Russians. Honestly, it would be better if they just drew this entire around Russia as well, because, it would not confuse people, but 70...
that is kind of a good point. I will say with some of these companies, the way they do the circles can confuse people because the circles aren't always right. I'm sure, I'm sure they probably have meetings at these companies, or at least I would hope so, where they would discuss, what should we do? Should we do the whole thing? Should we do part of it or whatever? But that is a good point. If they're not covering a lot of Russia, just kind of like a small portion of it, for someone like him, they may not quite realize without digging deeper, which it seems he's kind of figured it out that, yeah, it does include Russia. East European does include Russia.
8% are Baltic. I mean, wow. Like the entire fucking population of Russia is just Lithuanian dudes.
No, they're just related. It's basically just think of it as like Russia and the Baltic countries are cousins. The Baltic countries are cousins. The Balkans are cousins. That's basically the way to think about it.
Dude, Lithuania has legal rights to annex the entirety of Russia right now, So 43.4% of all Russians that took this test are Balkan, which is pretty epic. A very big part of people that took this test share some Balkan, ethnicity, some Balkan DNA, which is interesting. Finnish, I guess, makes sense because Finland had a lot of contacts with Russia in history, I guess. Central Asian, this is like Georgia, Azerbaijan. Yeah, it makes sense because these countries are on the border with Russia, so it's like ex-USSR stuff. Ashkenazi Jewish is 4%, Scandinavian is 4%, North and West European is 2.7%. So some people got like that French-German stuff. That's interesting. I have zero of that. Greek is actually only 2.5%. So like I'm a minority. I'm in the cool.
So the interesting thing with the Greek, what at least from a genealogy standpoint would be, if I'd start looking into his family history and building out his family tree, I would always keep my, I guess, eyes and ears open for something that connects with Greece. And if I find that, I would want to look into it because that could be the actual connection of where he has that Greek coming from. So, great grandparent, second great grandparent, maybe third great grandparent. It's really not that far back. And it might be one of those things too, where, he may go and talk to his parents, or if his grandparents are around, talk to them and say something. They go, oh yeah, I had a grandparent who was part Greek, or, oh, I heard about something in the family. So, that could always pop up.
Kids club, okay? Only 2.5% of Russians have that Greek swag, okay? I got the Greek swag, bruh. I gotta go get myself a gyro right now or something. This is actually very fascinating information. Like, I absolutely had not even the slightest expectation that I might have something Baltic in my genealogy and ancestry. This is epic. But yeah, I mean, I guess that is pretty much all that I wanted to discuss and show in this video. I'm very happy that I took this test. Very, very much worth the money. Once again, this is not sponsored. It would be nice if this video was sponsored. My heritage. But yeah, guys, make sure to share your interesting DNA surprises and stories down in the comments. I'll be actually pretty interested to read them. And I hope you guys did enjoy today's video. If you guys did, please make sure to slap the motherfucking like on it. And also, guys, if you want to support this channel, make sure to check out down in the description. There's a link to my Patreon. If you want to, guys, you can donate and support me. But yeah, guys, that is going to be pretty much it for today's video. I hope you guys did enjoy it, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.
All right. Pretty good video. A lot of stuff with this that made me really want to talk in depth. I mean, he by the end of the video, he had a pretty good understanding with what they were saying. He made a good point that in terms of the way that they kind of define things, it makes it a little confusing for some people at first. And, when he saw East European, he thought, well, I thought I was Russian. So what, what's the deal with that? But I was really happy when he was looking at his genetic matches. A little disappointing that, his top match was, what was like 40 something centimorgans, which is like 0.06%. So it's, doubtful that it's genealogically useful. But it could be. But I'd be interested to see now that it's, a year and a half later, does he have better matches? But this is also a good example that with MyHeritage, they do have better distribution across different areas of the world, especially in places in Eastern Europe, such as Russia. And because of that, if you have Eastern European ancestry and you're looking for matches, MyHeritage would be the way to go. Well, thank you so much for checking out this video. If you enjoyed, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. It really does help me out. You can also click right about here if you'd like to subscribe. It's completely free to do so. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram @GeneaVlogger. I'm the GeneaVlogger. See you in my next video.